This time on Video Game Tango, we don't like when games die forever, so we talk about our opinions on the Stop Killing Games initiative, then it's all Gamescom, Secret Level, and bad Borderlands.
Hello, I'm Nick, and the money people keep changing my bones.
Hi, I'm Josh. Lord of the Rings and chill. Either way, a ring's getting destroyed.
And I'm Andy. This is Video Game Tango. Welcome back, everybody.
Hello.
My puppet has a hole.
We're not doing the thing yet.
Yeah, this is the thing. What are
It's
you doing?
Josh's second intro.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
What's going on?
We have a few things to talk about today.
Yeah, we got a few. So
Little packed.
we are going to get to Gamescom pretty soon. But first, Nick, let's go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, so I brought up last week as I came across it. There is a new initiative going around, very grassroots, that has picked up some steam and garnered a lot of attention and drama online. And I would like to throw my 2 cents into the ring for whatever that counts. I don't know what inflation is on a random white dude podcaster's opinion nowadays. But yeah, Stop Killing Games is an initiative being put forward by a guy with the last name of Ross. I already forgot it. It's been about a week. Give me a little slack here. What is an EU initiative? What is this all about? Well, this is all about the idea of what if we make it required for game companies to stop making games forever unplayable. This has become a trend over the last 10, 15, 20 years. And due to kind of a fluke, this guy in the EU, I'm going to look up his name as I talk here, realized he could put forward a initiative to try to get a law passed that would help in this situation. These initiatives are word count limited, broad scope, essentially petitions put forward that if they get enough petitions across the entirety of the European Union, they have to be recognized by the EU law, and potentially a law is drafted up using more specific wording that then gets voted on to pass. I am going to actually
Civics
rely
lesson
on you to
and
look up this
and
Ross
video game
guy,
news?
if you don't
I'm
mind.
sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Sorry.
If you could look up the guy who's stopped killing games.
Yeah.
Anyways, so what exactly is this, and what does it do, and what does it not do? So I took some screenshots here. So what does this initiative not do? It does not require publishers to give up any intellectual property rights. It does not require publishers to give up source codes or server binaries. It does not require endless support or require publishers to host servers or require publishers to assume liabilities for customer actions or in any way interfere with the business practices of the game and the company while the game is being supported. This initiative would have no effect on a game while it is being supported by the developers and publishers making it. The goal is that once a publisher or developer has decided that they don't want to support the game anymore, they sunset the game, as they call it now, retire it, delist it, they would have to, at a bare minimum, provide some minimal viable product that allows the game to be released in a functionable, basic playing state. I think one of the examples given was if you had a racing game that was originally multiplayer, as long as you could get to the main menu, load up onto a map, and drive around by yourself, that would qualify, from what I remember, as his minimal functionable state. The goal of this is twofold. One, it helps with archival and preservation of games. He brings up an analogy of the very early cinema days when original movies the reels were melted down to recollect the silver they used, the old silver screen. And we have a lot of really old movies that we just have lost because they did not have other records of them. And games are still relatively in their infancy. It may not seem like that, but they've only been around for about 60 years, 50 years, arguably. And that's nothing over the course of human history. So to have, especially over the last 10, 15 years, hundreds of games, if not close to maybe 1,000, just be unplayable. I mean, if you consider all the old Flash games, even this initiative doesn't touch that, but there are a lot of games that just you can't play anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them even just because they don't run on modern hardware, right?
For sure. Black and White, we were talking earlier about it.
There's a good example. Now, those games kind of sit in their own category. But this initiative basically says that a company would be required to, moving forward, because almost assuredly it would grandfather in every current game as a concession, because how do you like back do this for games that are currently out? That would be way too messy and difficult and probably would never pass. But games moving forward, the developers, as they're making the game, would have to essentially create some method so that when they are done with the game, they can release the very basic code needed and the instructions to the public on how to, if it's like a multiplayer game, set up a private server, or if it's a solo game, disconnect it from DRM or anything that requires it to phone home to function, right? This is really how games worked in the late 90s to early 2000s. That's why things like Diablo, which you were just playing the other day, Unreal Tournament, Quake, Super Smash Brothers to an extent, right? Like some console games, you can go buy a disc or find the ISO of the ROM on a PC and just install it and play it. But there's games all the times now releasing that are partially live service or fully live service games.
Yeah.
That whenever the developer decides to be done, they just get rid of it. What does this mean for live service games? Well, it's a little different. It means that live service games aren't going to probably function exactly as they do now, which in my opinion is a good thing. Because what is a live service game? Well, it sounds like it's a service, right? It's not a product. Well, the law's not really clear on that. When this Mr. Ross guy who runs this called around to many different countries and their representatives that handle these kinds of laws, he contacted Germany and France, their governmental programs that handle these petitions. He got one that said that something like this probably wouldn't be needed, another one that was really for it, and one of them said they were completely unfamiliar with the situation, and as it sounded to them, this was the Germany one of all ones, from what I remember, the current situation sounds like it isn't already legal in the first place. The idea of live service games that are not selling a service but are actually selling a product.
Right.
How do they define this? If I subscribe to a monthly subscription that tells me you pay X amount of money and on Y date next month, if you don't pay again, your service ends. Right, a monthly subscription to Netflix or a food service box. That is a service. It is clearly delineated in the agreement that you agree to when the service ends, how much you pay, what you get while the service is running. Well, games, more and more often, you pay a chunk of money or you buy DLC or freemium content with no idea as to when the game is going to be done. In some cases, it lasts a decade or more. In some cases, it lasts a month, right? And what happened was there was a racing game called The Crew that recently shuttered. They delisted it. And something, I can't remember the specifics, but they basically, I don't know how to put this. They basically did everything wrong. And it was enough that this initiative had like legal footing to move forward.
Yeah.
The Crew isn't the only example that this would kind of touch.
It's just kind of the latest
but
example of it.
It was, for whatever specific reason, it was the reason that this initiative could move forward.
Yeah.
So what exactly is this initiative? How do you help? How do you do it? Well, first of all, you really can only help if you're a part of the EU. Like America... There's literally nothing an American citizen can do because we're kind of boned already, right? There was some ways if you're from Canada or South America, any of those countries down there that you could call representatives. But for the most cases, is for people in the EU, especially those who own the Crew. You don't need to own the Crew to assist. But if you go to stopkillinggames.com, there is a very well listed out method on how you can assist depending on where you're from. And they listed out so succinctly and perfectly because you only get one attempt to do it in a lot of these countries. You file your one petition, and if you do it wrong, it doesn't count. and they have to get a certain number of petitions, just like any petition, right? But in this case, it's not like an American petition to reopen up the old Burger King. In the EU, if this gets enough, it legally has to be looked at and voted on, which is really cool. It's a side note. I don't really want to get into it, but a lot of high profile YouTubers, celebrities, Twitch streamers, gamers have shared their opinions on this. Surprisingly, one of them, who I had a lot of respect for, kind of shit on it. In my opinion, bad faith. And then a lot of responses came out kind of attacking him about it. That's internet drama, whatever. The important thing is that this is kind of our last chance to stop live service games from getting any worse than they already are. This is not going to affect DLC prices, microtransactions, bullshit stuff like that. But what it is going to do is allow for not only preservation of games, but for those people, however small of a group, that like a game, to continue playing it after the companies decide they don't want to spend more money on it.
Yeah.
And think of like City of Heroes, right? It was right on that cusp of one of those games that had it been made today, it just would have been delisted.
Yeah.
Right. But because it was right on that cusp, the people who own the IP, I don't remember who they were, they locked it away for quite a while. And then they eventually agreed to allow a private server to be ran by people with their blessing, so that the people who really enjoy the game can play it, right? And no one's hurt by that, right? This is just a win-win scenario. I think Ross even said at some point that it might be possible for the company who made the game to keep selling it, knowing they would have to put a thing on there, be like, we don't officially support this game, don't expect any more patches or updates, but here's information on how to join private servers or run the game in single player yourself, right? That's how games just used to be. If you bought a disc, you could play the game for as long as you had that disc, right? And no one had a problem with it. And then capitalism got involved and found a way to ruin that. So if you or anyone you know lives in the EU, check out Stop Killing Games. It won't take much of your time, and you could potentially save a lot of games going forward in the coming years that future generations of gamers will be very thankful for.
To fill in a couple gaps there, the guy that started the initiative, his name is Ross Scott.
Ross Scott, that's right.
Yeah, an online content creator in the game space. As far as the crew goes, the crew, as of March 31st of this year, is delisted all editions and virtual currency packs. The game remained playable until the 31st, but they shut down purchases beforehand. It says, after this date, the servers will be shut down, which means the game will not be accessible anymore on any platform, including PC, Xbox 360, Xbox One, PS4, and Amazon Luna, and Ubisoft Plus. It goes on further. I'm reading this from the official Ubisoft site. Players who ordered the crew recently can check the refund policy of the store of their purchase if they wish to receive a refund. The Ubisoft store refund policy can be found here, and I did look up the refund policy. So it only applies to people that currently purchased it. Ubisoft games purchased on Ubisoft Connect can be refunded within 14 days of your purchase, which is all games. You have to have Ubisoft Connect to play it on Steam, etc. Yeah. So, but yeah, only 14 days after purchase, and then their rules on refunds for DLC and Season Pass is that it's content that is automatically available in a game after purchase, including DLC and Season Passes, not refundable, and the purchase once a purchase is made. And then refunds for virtual currency packs purchased on the Ubisoft store become automatically available in the game after purchase. Please note that this content is not refundable after purchase.
And this is where the legal grayness came into play, because there's laws in the EU about, there's a specific word for stuff like skins and DLC and loot box stuff that you pay real money for that exists as a digital product within another one, that they already have protections against. Like, if you kill the game, you're killing my access to microtransactions that I paid for. Yeah. And that's not entirely, it's in a very gray legal zone, the EU. I'm remembering now that part of the reason that the crew was viable for this was because it had a single player campaign.
Yeah.
And now you just can't play that.
Right, because it's always online. Much like the kerfuffle about Diablo 3, always online, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of strong opinions. We don't have a lot of time. But anyways, you or anyone you know in the EU, share it if you can. This is going to be a win for any actual person listening to this podcast, because I doubt Bobby Kotick or Bobby Kotick V2. I don't know how many clones he's got.
Probably a few.
Yeah.
He's worth a few billion. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's an important thing. I would definitely read the initiative, check it out for yourself, get educated on the topic. I think it's important to, whichever side of this issue you're on, to know what it is about, for sure.
Ross Scott's got 3 videos up on his YouTube channel. Accursed Farms, I think, is the name of it. One of them's like 2 minutes long, short version. One of them's 11 minutes long. Longer version goes more in detail. And then he's got like a 40-minute FAQ on all the frequently asked questions and how he answered them. And I watched all those. And I would vote for it if I could.
Yeah, for sure. But, it does take legislation to happen outside of the U.S. before we start looking into it most of the time. When it comes to entertainment and media, especially with video games, it wasn't until the loot box situation in Europe was talked about that U.S. legislators start to actually look into it, because it does catch their ear, right? And it's the only time it catches their ear. Our legislators they're not acquainted with this. They're kind of in the dark about digital transactions and media in particular.
It really boggles me, given that video games are the biggest,
The largest entertainment industry
in the world.
Yep.
But that's what happens when
crazy.
tech moves quick.
Yeah.
People move slow. So.
Definitely.
All right, Gamescom.
Gamescom! So, I'm going to be perfectly honest here.
The best game shown.
We're going to talk about not even necessarily the best games shown. We're going to talk about a few games shown. Lots was shown at Gamescom opening night live. We're going to be talking mostly about those games. There were plenty of other announcements. Today, the Future Game Show started, so there's going to be even more for us to talk about next week. So we'll be sure to bring you that content, as soon as we've gathered it up and checked it out. But for now, there's a few things that I want to talk about Gamescom-wise. One is kind of the show itself. To be honest, I wasn't blown away by the showing this year. A lot of cinematic trailers were shown. Some of them looked really neat. Some of them looked pretty cool. Others, I could care less. I'm not in the Honkai Star Rail universe. There's a lot of that. Not into Genshin, that kind of thing. And there's a lot of that. There's also a lot of new games, but there's a huge player base in video games now, and I'm excited for the people that like those games because they're getting more content. That's great, good for them. But this is an E3 of 2004 where every game that came out looked like a fucking banger because there were only 100 games coming out that year. You know what I mean? So we are looking at this huge pool of games that are coming out in 2024. So it makes sense that my interest is going to be a little bit less, a smaller bit of that pool.
It was a lot of not new IPs.
Yeah,
I mean, there's some new indie IPs. But.
Sure, absolutely, and definitely some stuff that I'm looking forward to, and we'll get to that. So a few things announced. They showed more Call of Duty Black Ops 6. We got to see Goat Simulator Remastered. Had a great trailer.
A great trailer.
Yeah, fantastic trailer.
That was an excellent fucking trailer.
And honestly, if you haven't played Goat Simulator, it's a really fun game. I highly recommend you play it. It's usually really cheap on Steam. Like, it's the kind of thing where during a sale it'll go for like $3. So and under $10, I say it's an easy buy. I think it's fun for everyone. It's got a lot of really fun mechanics. Persona 3 Reload DLC, Dying Light, so more Dying Light. We got to see a little bit more Black Myth Wukong, which felt weird to get a release trailer on the day the game launched. So, 2.5 million people. Yeah, game looks great.
I don't know if it's going to run on my computer, but
sure, yeah. New Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, King of Meat, which we will talk a little bit more about later. Linked Banner of the Spark, Lost Records, Bloom and Rage, No More Room in Hell 2, Arc Raiders, Infinity Nikki, which we talked about previously, and we on the podcast, you got more gameplay there. Release dates on Warhammer 40k, Space Marine 2, Predecessor, which looks pretty neat. It's Paragon done again.
Yeah,
So
remade.
Yeah, essentially. Which good. I think I really enjoyed the gameplay mechanics of the first game. It was a lot of fun. Path of Exile 2, we've seen already. Dune Awakening, we've seen already. Reanimal, which was cool. We'll talk about that later. More Genshin Impact, Monster Hunter Wilds again. So you kind of get what I'm saying here. It's a lot of the same. To be fair, it's only been, a month and a half, 2 months since the Game Awards. So, the amount of announcements that you're going to get between Game Awards and Gamescom is going to be
Pretty small.
pretty small.
Yeah.
New Fatal Fury is great. They showed off Mecha Break again. Monument Valley 3, which was a really popular indie game for mobile. So there's some cool stuff. We got a release date for Civilization 7, more Starfield. So yeah, let's talk about some games that we are interested in. At least I am, and Josh too. But some stuff that we checked out before the cast. The first one is called. It's got a weird name, guys. It's called King of Meat.
King of Meat.
It's an interesting title. So think Fall Guys meets Mario Maker.
And none of the characters have meat.
That's actually a good point. All of the characters are skeletonized.
Yes.
But yeah, it looks like a lot of fun. So it's basically running through a dungeon, lots of traps, lots of stuff to fight. The maps are user created. It looks like they have some default maps, but the maps
I'm
are
sure
user.
there will be.
Yeah, maps are user created. Looks like a blast. It's 4-player co-op. Yeah, there's fighting mechanics, jumping mechanics, platforming mechanics abound. Looks like a lot of fun. Also had a trailer with licensed music, Insane in the Membrane. That's excellent. Yeah, that was
crazy.
I finished the trailer just to finish the song. But yeah, looks like a lot of fun. And I see a lot of potential for the future as well. This is the kind of thing where it's like infinite amount of skins, infinite amount of potential, right? Because they have a basic platform here. It's ready to go like Fall Guys, but they can definitely expand upon it, which is neat.
Yeah.
So like more traps to put in, more puzzles, stuff like that. Maybe even more game modes.
Yeah,
So
there's themes. You could do all kinds of different themes for oh my goodness.
I think Fall Guys is a great example of the bones of it, but I'm seeing Castle Crashers.
for sure.
I'm seeing Orcs Must Die.
Yeah.
I'm seeing what's the other one? Gang Beasts, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of a little bit of all of that. And
For sure.
Definitely looks like it'd be a fun party game, assuming the game itself doesn't blow.
Yeah, but to be honest, unless the controls are really bad, what we're seeing,
or like disconnect issues. I mean, bugs, stuff like
Bugs,
that.
for
If
sure.
there's no bugs, that looks like it's gonna be a solid game for pretty much anyone, any age.
Yeah, it looks like quality fun.
Yeah.
Another game we talked about briefly before the podcast is this creeps Josh out quite a bit. It's called Reanimal, and it comes from the makers of Little Nightmares 1 and 2. Which, by the way, they also announced Little Nightmares 3 like 15 minutes after they showed Reanimal. It looks, to be honest, it just looks like Little Nightmares.
I mean, if Little Nightmares was rated like R, and this is rated like NC-17.
Yeah,
but not for sex reasons, just for
just for
horror reasons.
Yeah, it's definitely creepier.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and
more realistic, more grotesque.
it's got dead bodies, so it's cool. I really
That's a
dig the
mild
art
way of
style with
putting
this.
it.
Yeah, the dead bodies is not what concerns me.
No, not at all. It's the fucking sheep, right?
Yeah, 9-legged, 20-foot tall sheep climbing like spiders. The ocean's full of bloated corpses.
Yeah. So it's a pretty simple game. It looks like it plays just like Little Nightmares. Little Nightmares,
It's
I think
rated E. It's for 7-year-olds.
It's for everyone. So yeah, it looks neat. I think the people that brought Little Nightmares, which is a great game, bringing this out, it's gonna be more fun, right? If you're into those games, you'll be into this. It looks creepier than the Little Nightmares games, so if you're into the slightly more sadistic horror vibe, I think it'll be right up your alley. Another one I want to talk about.
Rated E for exorcism.
Dude, that's a great ad, to be honest. So the next one I want to talk about, I'm going to hand this over to Josh. This is Masters of Albion. Albion.
Excellent. Now, this is what's called a god game. I actually just learned what that is, and you play as you can imagine, a god. Now, Masters of Albion is coming from 22 Cans. Is it 22 Cans? It is 22
23.
Cans. 22 Can Studios, which is essentially what was once Lionhead Studios.
Yes.
That's pretty much the gang. Now, you hear Masters of Albion, you hear the voice, you see some of the characters, you're like, oh,
Chicken Chaser.
yeah, exactly. It's Fable. And that's exactly what the lawyers at Microsoft thought too. It turns out they are mistaken. And honestly, just to thumb your nose at Microsoft, it might be worth it if the game's moderately priced, just to pick it up for that. But it does look fun because it's your God. You're creating everything from the wonky buildings people live in. If you don't like the look, if you don't like the cut of someone's jib, you throw them into a windmill. Now that's all by day, right? It seems idyllic. You're pulling the roof off of stuff. You're building things. You're giving people jobs. Awesome. When the sun goes down, that story changes a little bit. By night, Masters of Albion changes from a wonderful, idyllic little builder to a little bit of a scary town fight to defend your townspeople. Now, that and you can do this in a couple of different ways. You can just straight go, Lord thy God, squish them and squish them and hit them with lightning, fireball them. Smite. Exactly. Or you can take direct control of a hero. Because what's a kingdom without a hero? I mean, what's a god without a demigod, right? So you can take your hero around. You can try and save the town. If it gets too much for you, step in. You can build additional weapons for your hero. You can get all kinds of stuff going. So this just seems like a fun game. A little more like almost in that what would be for me, I would call a comfort game, right? That's a cozy game right there for me. Right?
Yeah,
I get to build my castle wall.
Super complex.
Yeah, exactly. I get to build my settlement. I get to have a hero. I get to mess with people. If I'm having a hard day, let me tell you, guess who else is having a hard day? Now, when is it coming out? Soon. That's all. That's all they're going to tell us is that it is releasing soon. Coming soon.
Good games have come out soon.
All of them.
I just mean like, how many games have announced coming out soon?
Yeah. So the game is by Peter Molyneux. If you know the creator of such epics like Black and White and Fable. He got the old gang back together from Lionhead Studios, made his new studio with Blackjack and Hookers, and took the concept of the God game into, it looks like straight up Fable's Albion. It looks to be like it's mostly a city builder, God game city builder. You get to change the way buildings look and function.
Very Spore-like in that regard. Very
Spore-like, yes. That's a good call. It looks like you have individual named NPCs that run your town. It looks like you're able to, craft a menu based on the resources that you have available to your town. It actually shows like a poor quality to excellent quality version of the thing you're feeding your townspeople in a little mini game. It shows a mini game about crafting weapons. They show you can create a bread sword if you want to, or regular swords. And aside from the God portion of it, you get to go into over-the-shoulder views and play the game from like a citizen of your town's perspective, which is cool. So you can do combat in both ways, both as a god shooting lightning and fireballs down at enemies, or you can play over the shoulder as, Rex the Barbarian that wrecks house. So yeah, I think it looks cool. It's very Peter Molyneux coded. If you like those kinds of games, I think I imagine we'll probably like this one. I, for one, loved Black and White and Black and White 2. Those are on a huge pedestal for me. They were janky and broken in all of the most fun ways. Yep. It was never game-breaking bugs. It was bugs that allowed me to break the game, if you understand what I'm saying. So there was a lot of fun in those games, being able to control your creature, being able to cast spells, the way there was very little UI, I think was awesome. They came out with an entire like spell gesture system, so you made gestures on the land with your god hand to cast spells. All of it was really cool. I have a good level of trust when it comes to god games from Peter Molyneux. I know he's not known for delivering on everything that he promises quite frequently, i.e. Fable, but I think the end result are still good games. Because Fable, as much as was missing that was promised, was a good game. It was a lot of fun to play.
Fable gave me, I mean, what amounts to near like untold hours of enjoyment. Honestly, and not even just from me playing, but watching other people play, hearing about their stories, one of our friends in the game beating his husband into the wall. Like, I mean, like we still talk about that. We still talk about like, that. So it, yeah, I'm excited for it. It seems fun.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully we get another trailer in 6 months to a year that shows a lot of progress.
Yeah, it does look early for sure.
That looked like a very early trailer that was polished to make it look good for show. But that was really light on content.
Definitely. Yeah. If that's all the content that's in the game, I think you can experience the game.
That's a 10-minute game.
Yeah. Exactly. I was going to say you can experience that game in almost as much time as the trailer was.
Fingers crossed.
For sure. I'm gonna hold faith with this one, and I'm gonna expect good things.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about something tangentially different, still in the realm of video games, but something that was announced during Gamescom opening night live.
My favorite game of the whole game.
This is definitely the most exciting looking thing. I feel like, honestly,
for sure. So from Blur Studios, who are mostly famous for making cinematics for games, they've announced that they're coming out with, along with people that made Love, Death, and Robots for Netflix. If you've watched that, it's incredible, and you're already excited for this. Coming to Amazon Prime, they are making shorts with video game licenses.
Yeah, it's Love, Death, and Robots for video games.
Yes, and dude.
The video game selection is crazy.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
I suggest you watch the trailer.
Oh yeah.
Because you're gonna be stoked.
Don't sleep on it.
Don't sleep on it. There's gonna be a game in there that tickles your fancy.
What did they call it again?
Secret Level.
Secret Level.
Yes.
Okay.
Secret Level.
Yeah.
So each episode of Secret Level taps into worlds from beloved gaming classics and new titles. The list of games is Armored Core, Concord, which is probably gonna be better than the game. Crossfire, again, probably going to be better than the game.
Now, wait. When you say Crossfire, do you mean Crossfire?
No, okay, I mean the terrible fucking garbage mobile shit. But again, licensed to people that make really good cinematics. So hopeful there. Dungeons and Dragons, Exodus, Honor of Kings, Mega Man, New World, Pac-Man, PlayStation. Watch this trailer at the end, guys. We are showing the trailer. It's going to be the last scene. Make sure you're checking that out. But all of PlayStation, Sifu, Spelunky, The Outer Worlds, Unreal Tournament, and Warhammer 40K. Did you catch Pac-Man?
Yeah, right there at the very end.
Looks like an evil torture device.
Yep.
Yeah, I love it, man. So it seems like they've got new and kind of fresh ideas for these franchises, and they're going to be making shorts for them, I assume, probably 30 minutes a piece. Much like Love, Death, and Robots, they're anywhere between 15 and 30 minutes long.
Yeah.
But doing them episodically like they did with Love, Death, and Robots, and with this for me feels like proof of concept that we can potentially be getting some really good video game franchises, potentially in really good series or at least shorts.
I mean, honestly, if Arcane didn't show us that, this should. Yeah. I mean, good heavens. Just get some good animation going. Take some of that IP. Even if it's tired IP, like what the fuck is Crossfire? I don't know. I'm excited to fucking see it.
You have seen it, by the way.
Yeah, sure.
I think what just boggles me is the sheer breadth and scope of the IPs they're going to be doing. Where did they get the capital from that? Like, they must have worked out some crazy deals, and to see like so many Sony products on there.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if this does well, every game is its own universe,
Yeah.
right? You can nerd out about Pac-Man as much as you can nerd out about Marvel, right?
So-
And if somebody wants to make an animation in your universe for your game and people like it, that's just a win-win.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a cool video, and then it also brings people into your game, right? Come on.
As long as it's good. Which
long as it's good, yeah.
I'm holding hope.
Yeah.
I'm
Not
hopeful for it.
every Love, Death, and Robots episode was killer,
But they were all at least
overall
good.
they're fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. So all of those points lead me to the last game we'll discuss of the night.
Oh.
It's a little game called Borderlands 4.
Borderlands
Now,
4.
personally speaking, and it sounds like Josh also, and Nick probably, not terribly looking forward to Borderlands 4. Nobody is surprised by the release of Borderlands 4, except for probably Randy Pitchford. That guy seems to be in a constant state of surprise. But that leads me into the movie.
We're just going to skip over the game because the
cares?
trailer showed nothing but a planet exploding.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, Borderlands has brought me so much enjoyment. So, like, it kills me to not, like, be, I don't know, maybe that's just, like, kind of, like, about the movie. It kills the excitement for it. Sorry, I just
No, it's okay.
had to jump in there.
You're here on this podcast too, brother. So,
Yeah.
none of us have seen the Borderlands movie, and none of us plan really on seeing the Borderlands movie. Maybe when it comes to streaming.
Yeah, when it
right?
comes to streaming, I'll watch it, but
But to be honest, I mean, I thought it was going to be a hot turd from the first trailer I saw, and it turns out that it's been pretty universally panned. It seems like nobody likes this movie. For the first day it was in theaters, it was at 1% Rotten Tomatoes user score, and now I think it's at like 4 point something.
wow.
It's super low. The audience score is bad. The Rotten Tomatoes or the Rotten score is bad. It looks like it's just universally disliked.
It's clawed its way up to 10%.
Okay. So some people are going in, seeing it late, and liking it. That's good for them. I'm happy some people enjoy this movie. That said, the reason I bring it up, this is something that I was going to bring up last week, but we ran out of time. I hate this so much. This money grab. Okay. What I mean by that is taking a beloved IP, a really well recognized IP, and then making changes to it that are arbitrary, such as what's his name, the comedian in Borderlands,
Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
Casting Kevin Hart as Roland.
I don't like that.
The straight guy is now the comedian. For what purpose, right? Borderlands is already full of humor.
Yeah.
Everywhere. There's Claptrap, who's played by Black Jack. Have him be the comedic relief. You don't need to throw Kevin Hart in there. What they're doing there is just for the sake of name recognition. And that's true of the entire cast. I'd say even Jack Black being Claptrap, that's name recognition. Now, he's probably well suited for the role. Again, we haven't watched it. Probably well suited for the role, and maybe even funny. But dude, it's just studio licensing IP for the sake of putting out something recognizable so it gets butts in seats. It can't be anything more than that, based on people's scores, right? How this movie is being reviewed. And that is just taking us back a step. In the last couple of years, we have been getting excellent shows and movies from video game properties that have been licensed to even third parties, even major studios, and have done the series or the game justice. I mean, perfect examples are like The Last of Us was phenomenal. Arcane was next fucking level.
Yeah.
People that don't care about League of Legends are immediately drawn into Arcane by its art style and then stay for the incredible storyline and acting. And there is not a bad part of that show, in my opinion. It's near perfection.
I mean, Fallout, Cyberpunk, Edge Runners.
Edge Runners, yes.
Like, it rejuvenated people's interest
Yeah.
in the game before, like, they got, like, the final patches and the DLC out. Like, it was, man, come on,
So I'm really it really bothers me that we're still doing this video game licensing for the sake of licensing a video game. I feel like, again, it takes us a couple steps back in the progress that we're getting, and I really hope this doesn't become a trend. And I imagine that the guys over at Gearbox were probably banking on the fact that the Borderlands movie would have people super hyped for the announcement of Borderlands 4. Because Borderlands 4 did not get leaked, right? So whether you were expecting it or not, it was legitimately a surprise, especially after Randy Pitchford, the head honcho at Gearbox, said that they weren't going to be doing another major Borderlands, that they might still experiment within the Borderlands universe, but that they weren't going to be putting out another Borderlands. So having said that, to get Borderlands 4, people should be really excited. To be honest, from what I've read in people's opinions, from the comments left in the trailer, from the comments from the live chat in the opening night live at Gamescom, nobody cares, and everybody is worried after the Borderlands movie.
Yeah. So my opinion is, to start off with, I was thinking about it. I just looked it up. If you separate video game movies from video game shows, whether that's animated or otherwise, I just realized, besides maybe Tetris, which recently came out and is more of a thriller mockumentary on the history of Tetris, and perhaps the Mario movie, pretty much every other video game movie ever has sucked balls.
Yeah.
So Rampage, Prince of Persia, Doom, Assassin's Creed. I forgot they made an Assassin's Creed movie.
Me too.
Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
I mean, you have opinions on the Warcraft movie, but the Resident Evil movies. Uncharted isn't awful, but it wasn't. It was fine, right? And that's like as good as video game movies have ever gotten.
Yeah.
So actually looking at it, I'm not really surprised that the Borderlands movie is bad, because we've never gotten a really good video game movie. Yeah. But also, a lot of that has to come down to what games they're picking. And this is the conversation I had with Adam. For one, the Borderlands movie is PG-13. That doesn't make any fucking sense. Pardon my French. That is not a PG-13 game. So immediately, like, who is this movie for? It's an essentially R-rated game that you're trying to clean up for a kid's audience, but kids don't play Borderlands because the game came out when we were in our 20s.
Yeah.
Two, Borderlands, the main draw of it, is the game part. It is a very tight gameplay loop of shooting and looting and constantly getting rewarded with new fun guns and synergies to try out in a gory, glory-filled violence arena, right? None of that is narrative. None of that is plot. None of that is storyline. Sure, they've got some world building in there. Sure, there is technically a plot for the game. Nobody but the people who really like Borderlands care, right? So you picked a game that doesn't have good narrative or writing. It's got great dialogue.
Totally.
Right? But there's no bones to build off of. And then you kneecap it by making it PG-13. You replace characters with half the cast is like in their 70s.
Yeah.
Right? Like one of the main chicks, I'm pretty sure she was like 20 in the game. They replaced her with like, I forget her name, but like
Jamie Lee Curtis.
No, that's a different
Kate
replacement.
Blanchett.
Kate Blanchett, who's like in her 60s or 70s. Like, nothing wrong against Obi in movies.
Yeah.
That character is like 20.
Yeah.
Well, why? No answer. Kevin Hart, like I was saying, Idris Elba would have been a perfect cast for Roland.
Great.
He's a tough soldier guy, right? Or any one of his ilk. I just don't get it. I don't get why they chose Borderlands or why they did what they did. Who fucking knows?
But there's proof. There's a little bit. I'm gonna say with an asterisk here, a little bit of precedence that you can take something that doesn't have a whole lot of plot and narrative and give it good ones. Like use the universe and make a different story.
Yeah, that's like what League of Legends did.
League of Legends. Right. Detective Pikachu was great.
Yeah.
That was a fun fucking movie.
Yeah, Detective Pikachu was awesome.
That was a great
I forgot
movie.
about that. Yeah.
Even like Sonic the Hedgehog had its problems, but I
Sonic
enjoyed
was fine.
it. Yeah,
The
it was
first one was
fine.
fine. I liked it.
It was enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there's Mortal Kombat, which took itself semi-seriously, but it was ham-fisted and fun. There was Street Fighter, which was god-awful, but in a fun
way.
Yeah, in a fun way. Like, I especially loved it at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Going back and watching it, sure, I see all of its problems, but it was still... It was watchable.
So another thing that I just recently learned I had forgot about. Originally, the writer for the game was Craig Mazin, who worked as a writer on The Last of Us and Chernobyl, right? But then Eli Roth got a hold
of
the script and the writing. This is the guy who made Hostel, Thanksgiving, Cabin Fever. He makes gory splatter horror movies, and they're camp and they're bad, right? And apparently he butchered the script so bad that Craig Mazin refused to have his name on the movie and got replaced on the posters with a pseudonym called Joe Crombie.
Oh, shit.
So if you see Joe Crombie on any of the media for that was Craig Mazin, but they had to quickly change it because he's like, no, you've butchered this so much. I don't want this on my IMDb. I don't want this on anything of mine. So maybe this movie with a Craig Mazin script would have been something like
that. Sounds
League
like
of
it
Legends,
could have been really good.
The guy who did The Last of Us, that other video game show that was amazing.
Chernobyl was incredible.
Yeah, an excellent fucking show.
I can't even, like, part of me almost assumes like the Borderlands might be like, it's not good enough for writing of that caliber. Like, how do you like switch to such a splatterfest dark comedy? He could have probably did it.
Yeah.
And I would love to see his original script or screenplay for the movie. Like, I hope that gets leaked. But yeah, also I imagine there was COVID holdups. It's not like they started shooting this movie a year ago, you know?
Right.
So yeah, all in all, just a terrible, terrible thing.
So what are the lessons that we've learned? 1, don't make movies from video game properties, put them in shows. 2, cast them correctly. 3, don't, maybe in a lot of circumstances, look at the game and decide whether it's just something that you want to put in that universe.
Yeah.
That's totally fine.
Also, started in 2021. So yeah, they probably got screwed by COVID quite a bit. And don't let Eli Roth get a hold of scripts for blockbuster movies that cost hundreds of millions of dollars to make.
Yeah, dude. I'd say
stick to your slasher films. They're great for what they are.
Put him back in his K hole.